Hello everyone, my name is Becky. I'm from the Lubbock location, and today I will be going over our state board bags for cosmetology. So on the first section is our pre-examination setup and disinfection. So there you'll see that label. So in this bag, you'll need the 2 to 3 gallon size. You will need some paper towels. It's more convenient to have a roll, but it's okay if you have them folded up and you want to go that route. Woo. Then you're going to need 2 spray bottles. Make sure one is labeled EPA registered disinfectant and second one says water. You will need a hand sanitizer. Try to get the one with the pump. Once again, this is just more convenient rather than having to flip it over and squirt that out. And also include a trash bag. And do not forget to have it labeled also, okay? So, you can get a mesh pop-up laundry bag, which you can take all your bags in there and have that to carry. It makes it really easy and simple. If you are going to do that pop-up mesh bag, then you just line it with this trash bag. Now, if you're not gonna take it in that pop-up mesh bag, you will need to include some tape so that you can tape this bag to the table or countertop that you will be using and still have it labeled though, okay? One more thing is we are able to reuse our capes. So once again, this part is optional. You can have your chemical and your cutting cape in this first bag and it'll stay on your countertop. Because remember, we will reuse those in our different sections. So when you're done, you're gonna take the drape off, spray it with barbicide, wipe it down, then you're able to fold it up and keep it on the countertop with your spray bottles and all this. Or you can have separate capes in each one of those bags. Once again, that is an option and I hope I didn't confuse you. This next section is the tip and acrylic nail section. So here is that for you. This one, you can fit everything in about a gallon size bag. So with this one on your list, that's optional if you want to use 1 to 2 towels. Honestly, 1 is only necessary, but if you'd like to, you can do that. Have a couple paper towels in there for you, and you're gonna use that whenever you wipe off your acrylic brush so that you don't ruin your towels and get acrylic stuck to it. Include a wooden stick with the cotton on the edge, and you'll use that to push back the cuticle. Your acrylic nail brush, a file, a buffer, and on my buffer block, just so I don't stab myself, I included a tack. That's just in case you need, if the glue hole tends to dry up and you need to re-pierce it, you're not sitting there trying to cadaver something, but you'll have that handy for you. Your odorless acrylic liquid. This does say specifically that it wants the manufacturer's label on there. So just make sure you have a manufacturer's label as far as that product goes. A dappen dish or some type of a bowl for that monomer. You'll need your polymer. Now you won't need an individual bowl for this. You can dip your brush directly in this container. The finger with a nail on there to mimic the natural nail. Now you remember, you can use a fake finger like this or you can do it on yourself, whatever is easier. Make sure you have a nail glue, nail clippers, sorry, had a brain fart, and a primer with, we say to include 2 nail tips and a trash bag. One more thing that you will need to include is a nail cleanser. You can either get a gauze and label it as a nail cleansing wipe, or you can have an actual dehydrator, okay? Now, When you first started with your kit, you guys should have received this odorless acrylic kit. If this is still in good shape, most of what I just showed you individually is going to be in here for you, ready to use. And the nice thing is everything's already labeled in this box, okay? Okay, on to the nail tip with the acrylic. Remember, before you grab your bag, always make sure that you sanitize before you grab one of those, okay? So, first step, it says to set up your manicure table. Lay out your towel. Have your files, everything set. Remember, keep that tack pushed into that buffer so you don't accidentally stab yourself. There's our brush. There's our nail tips, our dapping dish. Now you can use the nail tip cutter. The only thing with that, and I would recommend you using a nail clipper instead, is that cutter. Remember, the arms are fairly long for you to cut it, and usually this part of the nail gets in the way. So just caution if you are using the tip cutter. I just find the nail clipper more convenient. Remember, our fingernail needs to have the nail prepped, or you're using your own finger. As I had said before, you can either use an alcohol wipe and label it nail cleanser, or you can have your dehydrator, your primer, polymer, and the monomer that has the manufacturer's label on there. There's our cuticle pusher and some glue. And don't forget that little bag labeled trash. Okay, so that was step one. Step two is telling us to sanitize, clean our hands, okay? Next step says to prepare nail for tip application. So there's different ways to go about this, just showing that you're prepping the nail. So my way of prepping the nail means we'll use this to push back our cuticles. I'm done with that, so it'll go in the trash. Then I will prep my natural nail tip, meaning remember, we do not saw our natural nail, we file from the outer corner to the center. So I just give that a couple strokes doing that, but just make sure you have this literally prepared before you come, so you can just do quick steps on that. And then I like to just give the top of that nail just a slight little buff. Okay, with that, now I am able to use my nail cleanser or your dehydrator, okay? This is my way of having my nail prepped and ready to apply. Remember, once you're done, throw things in the trash. Don't just leave everything out. So it says next step says to select and adhere your nail tip. So you already have checked these out before you packed your bags, making sure that it fits. If for some reason it's too wide and it's hanging over it, remember, you can just file down those edges to make them fit the size of the nail. Now it's not specific on the nail tips that you need to use, whether it's a full well, half well, no well, or even if it could be colored or not, okay? It just says nail tip. So you're checking to make sure that it would fit. Size it nicely, and then add your drop of glue. Remember, if you've already used this glue, that hole may be shut. So that's what this little tack is for. Remember, you guys have 32 minutes on this section. They'll warn you when you're halfway through. That is an ample amount of time to do this. So even if this is not your strong point, it's enough time to get it done. So remember, you stop, rock, and hold. Sometimes you may need to let that glue get a little bit tacky before you apply it to the nail, and just give yourself enough time to hold it down. If you are waiting for it to get tacky, do not blow on it, okay? Fan it either with your hand, you have these paper towels, and you can use that. Okay, so now we've adhered our nail. So now it is time for our next step, which is trimming it down. Personally, I'm just leaving a very short free edge, but you can leave it as long as you would like. To me, the shorter, the easier and faster that I can get it done. So if you're using the nail clipper, just trim on each side. This nail tip will need to now go in the trash. And I'm just making sure that I don't have glue so I don't get my finger stuck to it. And then I will shape my nail tip just a little bit, okay? If it's really crooked and not straight and even, I'd probably just use my nail clipper if I need to. Remember those little droppings, put them in the trash, okay? But if it's pretty even and it has a decent shape, you can wait until after you apply the acrylic to shape that nicely. Next step tells me that I need to blend my nail tip, okay? So remember, I am filing on the nail tip itself, not on my natural nail, so I am able to do that sawing action and go back and forth, okay? You do not have to totally file this down to where it's like a perfect blend, but just showing that you know how to do this step. I would recommend using the clear or natural nail just because it helps to blend in a whole lot easier. So there's that step, nice and easy. Okay, now it says to apply the acrylic product. So remember, we're using odorless and that you have to have the manufacturer's label on there. So you can do this at the beginning when you're prepping. I just like to do this right before I get started by pouring that monomer in there, or like I said, you can pour the monomer at the very beginning. Remember, polymer, we're able to dip into that container itself. And then I will prime the nail. And you technically only have to do the natural part. There is no specific, sorry, that brush is a little frayed out. There's no specific technique that you have to do when you are doing this. Meaning you don't have to do that 1, 2, 3 ball method, but you remember you do first want to apply that acrylic closer to the free edge than the cuticle so that you don't have a whole bunch of product building up around there. Remember, we do not want this acrylic where the skin would be just on the nail itself. Okay, so I can hold that in there. Remember, you have 32 minutes to do this. So if you're not used to doing nails, remember, you don't brush, you're doing more of that patting motion. So you from Lubbock campus, the way we make you do those acrylic balls on that page, that's where this step comes into play, okay? Remember, you're patting and dabbing and molding it how you would like to be. Then when you're through with that part, then you can brush and smooth. Making sure to not let it get under that free edge or all over the finger itself. So now I'll create a small little ball to get up closer to that cuticle area. And if you noticed, I let go of some of that liquid first before I dipped it in there, just so that I wouldn't get such a huge ball, because I only need a little bit for that area. And I'm doing the same thing, that patting or dabbing motion. And that keeps you from spreading it everywhere and getting it, those ridges, and from being really, really warped. So As you can tell there, I still need to add a little bit more. So once again, release some of that liquid so I can just get a very, very small ball. And I can fill in where I need to. Remember, the patting or that dabbing motion helps to eliminate a lot of filing also and keeps it a little bit smoother. Okay, so once again, I can use my paper towel or finger to fan. Okay, remember that odorless acrylic will have a tacky layer. It can set for 30 minutes and you're still gonna have that tacky, sticky layer. And remember, that layer is called our inhibition layer. To get rid of that, you need to file or buff it off. Okay, so I can feel it still has that rubby, tacky feeling there, but it is set up. It's not moving, it's dried completely. So at that point, then you can file off and you can see that inhibition layer coming off. So it's getting that tackiness off. And remember, this is only with our true odorless monomer. So make sure you file all of that off. Shape your free edge. Make sure the shape is nice and even and balanced. Then from there, I will focus on the edges back to the cuticle. And go around that cuticle area nicely. Make sure you're not getting any product up or leaving any product up on the skin. And you can lift it up, check the shape, make sure you're nice and smooth. Maybe run your finger across it. Once you're good with that and it looks nice and neat. Okay, so once you're done filing, your last few steps were just to apply the acrylic, file and finish the nail surface. Once again, just making sure that that shape is nice, you don't have it everywhere, and it's nice and balanced, and that is it. Remember, no top coats, no nothing like that. So do keep your finger out, and then you will put everything away from there. Make sure you clean off your brush nicely so you can reuse it. And proper way to dispose of that leftover monomer, which is why I include 2 paper towels, is to soak it up first. And then stick it in your trash can. Put your lid on that, and then you're able to put all of this back away in the trash. But don't forget, leave your finger out. Blood exposure incident. There is your label for that. Now this one you can use a gallon or even the smaller size, like this quart if I'm not mistaken, okay? In here, you will need to include your set of gloves. Ooh, sorry. A paper towel or a gauze. A smaller bag that can be sealed and label it biohazard. Have an antiseptic, so I just use a little alcohol pad and I labeled it. And I just included 2 Band-Aids. So this is when you're gonna mimic that somebody has cut themselves. Now also on this side, do not put this one in there, but keep this off on the side. Label it first aid kit and have the same things in your first aid kit that you put in this blood exposure incident service, okay? Now, if you actually really do cut yourself or something happens, you're gonna have this on the side with your bag, so if you need it, it's there ready to be used. Be safe.
Hey guys, today I'm going to demonstrate to y'all the blood exposure incident from your state board. So to start off with, I'm going to take everything out of this bag. So I'm going to sanitize my hands. And then after that, you need to apply your gloves on. Okay, so you can either do this on yourself or you can use the finger that you used before on your tip application. So I'm just gonna use this hand right now. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply pressure to the stimulated cut. So I'm just using my thumb to apply pressure on it. Okay, so then I'm gonna use my first aid kit. Because now I have to clean the stimulated cut. So I'm going to use an alcohol swab. Okay, so you're going to keep this trash in your dominant hand. So I'm putting it in my right hand. And I'm going to clean the stimulated cut. Okay. Still keeping that swab in my right hand. Okay, so then I'm going to open up my first aid kit again. I'm gonna get a Band-Aid. Again, keeping all my trash in my dominant hand. And it is kind of hard with this Band-Aid not to get it stuck to your gloves. Okay, so now I'm going to apply the Band-Aid to the cut. Okay, keeping all of that trash inside of my hand. Okay, so in your kit, you do have these biohazard bags. So once you have the cut bandaged and everything, then you're going to take your glove in your dominant hand. You're going to flip all of that trash inside like this, okay? So then it's hanging on the fingertips. Then you're gonna grab your other glove, flip that inside. So all of it's pretty much in like a little ball. You're going to get your biohazard bag. Put it in your first biohazard bag. And then you're gonna put it in your second biohazard bag. Sanitize your hands again. And then you would raise your hand for your proctor to check. Thanks guys for watching. I didn't know what to...
Okay, next is our eyelash strip application. So there is a label for that. Once again, about a gallon size bag. You may even use that quart size for this. So if you were not going to have your capes with your very first pre-exam bag and already sitting out on the counter, that's when you would want to make sure that you include your cutting cape in here. Okay, so you will need the cutting cape, a neck strip, tweezers to apply the lash, or the actual ones that come with the lash strips, just whatever you prefer, but some type of applicator for it. Some small scissors, a clip to keep hair out of the face, and you will need your lash strip, and this one includes a glue in there also. Remember, you guys only have to do one eye.
Hey guys, it's Paul again. So now I'm going to go over the eyelash strip application part of your state board exam. They do include safety criteria and procedure criteria for you guys, so that's nice that you have to follow once you get to this portion of the test on the real thing. For this section, they actually are going to give you 14 minutes to do the whole thing, which should be plenty of time. Like I said, we've been practicing state board since you guys have started school, so by the time you're done, you should get a pretty good time going. So I have the actual PSI right here. If you guys need one at home, you can just Google Texas PSI and it'll take you directly to this copy that I do have. So I'm just gonna read off the steps right quick and then also go over the safety criteria. So for the procedure criteria, they want you to sanitize and clean your hands, prepare the mannequin for service, prepare the strip lash, and then they want you to actually apply the strip lash. Note, this is all gonna be done on a mannequin. And then the safety criteria, they wanna make sure that you properly dispose of waste material, ensure the workstation or your area remains sanitary. They also want you to ensure draping is maintained throughout the service, replace contaminated items, ensure containers remain closed when not in use, making sure your kit remains sanitary, and then avoiding cross-contamination. During this portion, they'll let you know when you have 7 minutes remaining. Like I said, you should get to the point where you don't even need to get to that halfway point because you've already been so used to doing this. So now I'm going to drape first. So doing my towel and then my cape. I did towel. So that's what I just would recommend, and we're just going to secure the cape. So now I'm reading one by one what you're supposed to do. So of course, they want you to sanitize and clean your hands. So sanitize. Preparing mannequin for service, that's when you would put the headband on. I braided mine. I want you guys to use your headband, what comes in your state board kit. So headband or the cap that you can also use for that. Now we're going to prepare the strip lash. And you can just go to the store and buy any lash that they do have on a strip. It doesn't have to be a certain brand or quality, just as long as they can visibly see that you're applying the lash correctly. So this is what it'll look like. And I actually don't have lash glue for these, so we're just gonna use this. It's nail glue, but we're gonna just so you can see it visually. So you'll apply your lash glue. For those of you that don't know, lash glue will get tacky, so you need to let it sit for a little bit. And then I actually have one of these that I would use to kind of just brush off any residue that the lash line might have. And then you'll use little eyelash tweezers and take it and you'll actually apply it on that way. Like so. And when you're done, you'll raise, before you raise your hand, a little pro tip, throw everything away that you've used. So once you're done with that portion, take everything off, dump it in your bag, spray everything down, sanitize your section, and then raise your hand. It saves you time, so you're not having to do that before you start your next section for the next thing on the list. So I hope this was helpful. Again, practice makes perfect. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to tag me on either group, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. Thanks.
Now we're on to our facial service. So there's the label for that. It'll fit in a gallon-sized bag. So once again, if you are going to include your cape in here, for this one I would use the chemical cape. you are going to be doing chemical draping, towel, cape, towel on this one, okay? So with that being said, you will need to include 2 towels, a shower cap. Now you can have cleansing wipes. This is just put in a container, so I need to label it, unless you're gonna get the facial cleansers, and you can, which is a small little package, costs about $1. Either one. Include 2 clips, just in case you need to use one to secure that towel around the neck, and another one to hold the hair back, and some type of a headband. Then in a squeeze tube, you will need to label that one cleansing cream, massage cream, moisturizer, and all those you need to put in the squeeze tube. And then in a little small one with the spray on it, you can do a toner. You are able just to spritz it on the face. You don't have to use the gauze or the wipe with that. So it's just more convenient to have it in that spray pump. And that's it on that section.
Hey guys, it's Paul again. So now I'm going to go over the facial service for you guys. You also have 17 minutes for this section. And the procedure criteria and safety criteria are kind of the same as far as with your lash application, as far as like cleaning, keeping your area clean as well, sanitizing your hands, but I'm still gonna go down the procedure criteria part of this. So first thing, always sanitize and clean your hands. Step 2, remove eye makeup and lipstick. Then they want you to cleanse the face, remove the cleansing cream. Then they want you to apply massage cream. And then this is important. These are the 3 things that they're looking for. They want you to demonstrate effleurage manipulations. Then they want you to go into petrissage manipulations. And then they want you to finish it up with tapotement manipulations. I'll explain what those are once I do begin. And then after that, they want you to remove the massage product, apply a astringent, freshener, or toner, and then apply your moisturizer. And then for the safety criteria, they want you to properly dispose of waste material, ensure that your workstation is clean, ensure that head draping is maintained throughout the service, replace contaminated items, ensure containers remain closed when not in use, and then they also want you to avoid cross-contamination. So for this one, again, you will have your headband or your cap over the hair of your mannequin. Again, you're doing this on a mannequin. You no longer will be doing it on a real person like before. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. So of course you wanna sanitize your hands, and I'm using just hand sanitizer that we have here. And then you're gonna go in and remove eye makeup and lipstick, and you'll have cotton swabs, or you can do like the little cotton rounds, whatever gets the job done. And you're just gonna act like she has a full face on, and you're just taking everything off, okay? Now you're going to cleanse the face. So you're gonna take a little bit of your cleanser, and these will be part of like your 3 little containers that you actually make for your kit. So we're gonna put some cleanser on her, and we're gonna cleanse her face. Just one more, so you guys can actually see it going on. And guys, again, you don't have to go out and get like fancy facial cleanser, just as long as you can see that you're clearly doing the demonstration. Then your next step, they want you to remove the cleansing cream. So you'll come back through with a cotton swab or a cotton round, whatever you prefer. See, we just want to take off all that product we put on her face. Okay. Now you're gonna get your massage cream. I'm using cholesterol. Like I said, as long as it looks like massage lotion or whatever, they just want to see that you know what you're doing. So we're gonna take a little bit and apply it to her face. Guys, when you're doing your facial, that's a little bit too much. When you're doing your facial, you always want to keep one hand on her face. And I'm not saying you have to like reach over for things, but if you have hands on her face, you always want to just make sure you keep at least one. So now we're just evenly distributing lotion. So now we're going to go into effleurage, petrissage, and tapotement. So effleurage is going to be, you're kind of just bringing everything towards you and just kind of rubbing that cream in, going all over her face. Again, notice how we're just keeping one hand on her face at all times. Petrissage, a way to kind of associate that with another word, petrissage is pinching. So you're gonna come through and pinch again, just keeping one hand on her face at all times. Just pinch. And tapotement, another word association that you could do with that, tapotement, tap. So you're just tapping. So we're just coming up. And see how we're just alternating between hands. This is kind of awkward to do on a mannequin, but you get the point. Now, once you've done all that, you're gonna remove all of your massage product. So again, you'll take a cotton round or cotton swab, whatever you have available to you. You wanna make sure to get all that residue off. And they will check every crevice of your mannequin's face to make sure that you've removed all of the massage cream. Okay, once that's done, it asks you to apply astringent freshener or toner. Again, this is gonna be part of one of those things that as long as it looks like any of those 3 things listed, they're just wanting to see that you know how to do it. I do it with the cotton swab, cotton round, whatever you have. So we're just gonna come back through. This is why we need a headband or something, because her hair is kind of in her face right now. Sorry guys. And you just let that dry. And then last but not least, you'll go through and apply a moisturizer. Again, about a dab is enough for your mannequin face. And notice I'm still alternating between hands, always keeping one hand on her face. Yeah, and that's about it. So for this section, they do let you know when you have 9 minutes remaining. So they give you a little bit more time of as far as warning goes compared to your eyelash application, where they tell you if you only have 7 minutes left. But again, once you kind of build up your speed for this one, it should be a breeze and you shouldn't need the full 17 minutes. I'm not saying you don't need to use it, but definitely use it if you need to. But at that point, I mean, you should just be able to kind of breeze through it. But yeah, that's it. I miss you guys. I hope you're doing well. I can't wait for all this to pass so we can be in school again together. And I hope to see y'all soon. Thanks.
On to waxing service. There is that label, gallon size bag. Now this one, if you're gonna have the cape in there, you would put your cutting cape or just use the cape that you have already sanitized on your countertop. So with this one, you will need a shower cap and neck strip, okay? No need to put a towel around their neck. Have a couple gloves. Have a squeeze tube labeled post-wax product or soothing cream. You will need a cleansing wipe. So on this, I just used a small little alcohol pad and I labeled it cleansing wipe. You will have your mock soft wax. Remember, no double dipping, so include a couple popsicle strips or the orange longer wood sticks, whatever you prefer. A few strips, and a few cotton balls. And that's everything to be included in that bag.
Hey everyone, today I will be demonstrating the eyebrow waxing service for your state board practical exam. So whenever you get your PSI, looks something similar to this, notice before that you do a facial. And so your mannequin's already gonna be draped with a facial cape. And so the same cape is gonna be acceptable for your waxing service. So you can just leave your mannequin caped for this service coming up. So first, before we start any procedure on anybody, we are going to sanitize our hands. And now we're gonna go ahead and grab the bag that we need for our waxing service. If you have a state board kit, it's gonna look something very similar to this. Go ahead and get the implements that you need. You also need to make sure that the bags remain closed at all times. After I'm done with the bag, I'm going to seal it up. So first we're going to secure the hair out of the way. So just pull the hair back, and then I'm just gonna clip it out of the way. Also too, I would recline her head at a comfortable position for you. So I'm gonna be working on the right side of the eyebrow. You can do right or left, whatever you want. So before we start anything, I'm gonna go ahead and put gloves on. Now it says to prepare an area of one eyebrow for service. So to prepare an area for service, we're gonna be using an alcohol prep pad. This is gonna get any kind of excess oils they have or makeup or debris they have on their face. So we're gonna open our pad and then prepare the right side with that. Just remember to work in the direction of the hair growth. Now we're going to demonstrate the proper application of wax. So I'm going to take my mock wax. And I'm going to go ahead and get my wax strips ready. My orange wood sticks. And my cotton. This is just extra stuff in case you do drop something. You can go back through and pick out whatever else you need. Hopefully you won't drop anything. So now we are going to demonstrate proper application of wax. So we have our mock wax. We are going to take it and apply it above the brow line in the same direction as the hair growth. Go ahead and close our container. Break our stick. That means that we are done and it's used. Now we're going to apply our fabric. We're going to apply pressure with the hair growth, ensuring not to pull the skin. And before we pull that back, we are going to pull on the skin and pull in the opposite direction of the hair growth. So then you're gonna pull it off. So this is trash now. Now we are going to remove any wax buildup that we had. This is trash. And then we are gonna apply a post-wax product. So I'm using just a small strip of cotton, and I'm gonna apply my post-wax product. So it's gonna be something like a soothing lotion. So we'll apply a little bit of that onto a cotton, and then just clean the eyebrow. So we're done with that. Just remember, for this procedure, you have 14 minutes total. and I think I am at 5 minutes. So I did it in about half the time. You can go ahead and put her up to the upright position, release the hair, take off your gloves, put everything that you've used, that you have touched into your trash can, and then raise your hand and you're done. I hope this helped you and answered any questions that you had. Thank you.
Okay, on to the hair cutting section, sorry. So there's a label for that. This will fit in your gallon size bag. For this one, I'd say include about 4 clips. You'll need your neck strip. This one you will use your cutting cape, or you can have it on the counter to grab from. Remember, there is a razor section on this, so make sure you have your shears and your razor and a couple combs. The one thing in this bag that is optional is if you'd prefer to use a cutting aid, as we all know how those mannequins are harder to comb through. So if you'd like that, just make sure it's labeled.
Hello everyone, today I'm going to be demonstrating the state board haircut for you. For the state board haircut, they require that you take at least a minimum of 1 inch off of your mannequin. And then I'm going to be using a square layering pattern. That's going to be the easiest way to get layers put in the hair. So first we're going to start with our mannequin. In your state board kit, you will have a spray bottle, and so we're going to spray her down, detangle her. I've already done that part. So we're going to start by sanitizing our hands first. Just remember, whenever in doubt, always sanitize. So we're going to start out with sanitizing our hands. It says, I'll prepare the mannequin for service. I've already done that part. Remember, like I mentioned before, I sprayed her down and detangled her. So that's prepping the mannequin for service. Now we're going to perform a scalp analysis. When I am performing a scalp analysis, I am going to just be lifting sections of hair off of the head and checking for abrasions or any kind of open wounds they may have, or infectious diseases. So I'm going to start out with the middle parting. Go ahead and work with vertical sections, just performing your scalp analysis. Then you can start on this side. Okay, so after my scalp analysis, I'm going to go ahead and begin my haircut. You can do it one of 2 different ways. You can go in and create the square layer pattern first, and then go in with your razor and use your razor to do a 1 length, because you do have to use a razor at some point in this haircut. I'm going to go ahead and start with my square layer pattern first and get all the layers put in, and then at the very end I'm going to go through and do a 1 length with my razor. When you are working with a state board bag such as this, every time you take something out, once you get all your supplies that you need out, go ahead and seal it back. They want to make sure that your bag is sealed every time, so make sure you're doing that part, okay? So I've taken out all my supplies for my haircut, and I'm going to sew my bag closed. Remember, for this service, again, a reminder, you have 42 minutes to complete this. So I'm going to go ahead and clip her hair up to drape her. We're going to be using a long neck strip. So we can probably loop that around twice. Fold it over to seal in the end so it'll stay. Go ahead and grab your cutting cape. The same one is acceptable, so if you've done your waxing service, you are required to put a cape on your mannequin, and you can use that same cape for your haircut. If for some reason your cutting cape is too long, I would just wrap it around and then go ahead and clip it and secure it with some sort of a clip. Okay, so now you're ready to start your haircut. She is draped and ready to go. So when we're working with a square layer haircut, we're gonna start out with the center vertical section from the forehead to the nape. Remember with that center vertical section, it's going to create a guide for you. So you don't want that center vertical section to be any wider than the width of your comb. So it's almost like a mohawk section. And that's gonna create our guide for the whole haircut. Okay, so I have my center vertical section. I'm ready to start my guide. Remember, whenever you are cutting your square layers, you're going to be starting in the very front at 90 degrees to the head shape. And remember that the head's round, so it's gonna be 90 degrees at different points. So if you think about it, it's going to be 90 degrees here. When we get to the top of the head, it's gonna be 90 degrees there as well. So I'm gonna turn her to the side for you. And we're just cutting blunt. So now I'm gonna start piecemealing those sections together. So taking some of what I cut and adding it to some of what I haven't cut. So this is gonna be my guide for the rest of the haircut. Once you get to the back of the head, make sure you're over directing the pieces that are back here up. So if the hair does not reach from the very bottom or the guideline, you don't have to cut it. Okay, so I have my guideline in and it's set for the rest of the haircut. Remember that on the state board layered haircut, you can use any layering pattern. I'm just using this because I feel like this is the easiest. So I'm gonna go ahead and split that guide in half. Half of it's gonna go to the right and half of it's gonna go to the left. So we're just breaking up that guide, that center vertical section, with a profile section. So after I work with my profile section, I'm going to turn the mannequin around and I'm going to be working with a radial section. So we know that a radial is going to go from the top of the crown to the top of the ear, and it's going to separate the front of the hair from the back of the hair. So I'm gonna take my clip out the front part of the hair. Take another clip. section out the front part. So now we're left with a radial section. So with that radial section, I'm going to start pivoting. Remember that our guide's in the center if you ever get lost. The guide that we created with the center vertical section, you're gonna be using that for the whole entire haircut. So whenever we're pivoting, we're gonna be working with a broken profile, or if you want to, you can also take just a profile from the top of the crown all the way down to the nape. And just remember, pivoting, it's gonna be like pie sections. So they're gonna be like, almost like triangle sections. This haircut, we are over directing up to 90 degrees. Following our guide in the center. So I'm done with that, the right back quadrant. So I'm gonna move over to my left back quadrant. So whenever I'm pivoting on the left side, I'm gonna turn her around this way. I'm combing the hair up to 90 still. Following my guide from the center. Just remember to move with the pivot. So I'm on my last pivot. So I'm gonna be standing directly behind the mannequin. Okay, so I am done in the back. I'm gonna cross check. Take sections from both rear quadrants about in the same area. You're just gonna pull everything up to make sure that they're even. So right now we're balanced. So everything looks good there. So now I'm gonna start in the front. Turn her around here. Remember that our guide is still in the center for the front. So we're just gonna be working with horizontal sections. And the sections, make sure they're no wider than the width of your comb. So we are still combing that, over directing up to 90 degrees. Our guide's right here in the center. So I'm just gonna take that and follow my guide over. Over directing up, our guide's still in the center. Over directing up, our guide's in the center. So we are done with the right front quadrant. Let down our last quadrant. Still working with horizontal sections. Standing behind her head, over directing the hair up to 90 degrees. So we're elevating to 90 degrees, over directing up. Taking my last section here, elevating to 90 degrees, over directing up, and following my guide that's in the center that we've created at the very beginning. So always cross-check in the front as well. So I'm going to take sections in the same part of the head on each side and pull up. And we want it nice and balanced when we pull it to the center. It's nice and balanced. Sometimes if you get tags, I would just go through and try to cut those off as best as you can, still following your guide from the center. So I'm done with the internal layering part of the haircut. So now I'm going to go through and demonstrate one length with a razor for you. So we're done with the shears and comb. So now we're going to take a razor similar to this. It has to have a guard on it for state board. I like to use the bigger part of the teeth whenever I'm doing a one length. You have a little bit better control and you don't have to take such small sections. But either side is fine, just whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm actually going to lift the mannequin up a little bit first. Turn her around here for you. So when we're working with a razor similar to this, when we go through to cut, I'm going to push down on the hair in a scooping motion. Tilt her head down slightly. I'm going to start in the center back with my one length. And since we're not taking a lot off, you don't have to do a million partings and sections. Just get those ends cut and trimmed with your razor. So I'm going to hold that at a very low elevation, natural fall. And whenever I'm going to cut, I'm going to go above my fingers. And like I said, we're going in a scooping motion. So I'm going to go ahead and push that down. Take my next section of hair, clip the rest out of the way. Following my guide from where we created above my finger, scooping down. Sometimes you will get little tags like this, just go through and clean those up. Release the rest of my hair. So I'm going to start on the right side of my mannequin. Take my next section. following my guide. Releasing the rest of the hair. Following the guide to my one length. Just remember, you're not cutting with shears, you're cutting with a razor, so you're not going to get a perfect straight line. It is going to give the mannequin, or the haircut I should say, a little bit more of a frayed look on the ends, and that's okay. They just want to see that you're using the razor. Okay, so I'm done with my one length on my mannequin. So I have completed the haircut. I'm just gonna recap one more time. What time am I at?
20 minutes.
So I did all this in 20 minutes, and remember that you have 42 minutes to complete this. So I completed it in almost half the time that was given through state board. Just real quick, we're gonna recap on everything. We always want to sanitize our hands before we start any state board procedure or any procedure in general, even if you're behind the chair. After we sanitize our hands, we're going to prepare the mannequin for service. So that means spraying her down, combing out the tangles, and let's getting her draped with a neck strip in the cutting cape. The reason why they want to see a neck strip is because it protects the client's skin from touching this cape. We are going to perform a scalp analysis. So we're just taking vertical sections, lifting the hair up away from the scalp and checking for abrasions. After you perform the scalp analysis, you can go ahead and start your haircut. I used a square layer pattern on the haircut today, starting with the center vertical section. Just remember, a center vertical section is going to create a guide for you. So we used a center vertical section to create the guide for this whole entire haircut. After we created our center vertical section, we split it in half. Then we took a radial from the top of the crown to the top of the ears, sectioned out the two front quadrants away from the back part. After that, we started with pivot sections, working with our center vertical section guide that we created in the beginning, working with pivots, elevating to 90 degrees, over directing up, and we're blunt cutting square. After we did our pivots in the back, we worked with horizontal sections in the front, elevating to 90 and over directing up. We used a blunt square layer pattern, and like I said, always go through and just cross check at different points to make sure the haircut's even. So I guess that's it, guys. I hope this helps you and answers some of your questions. We'll see you later.
Now it's our perm section. There's a label for that. This will fit in about a gallon-sized bag. And here include a couple rat tail combs. If you prefer your foiling comb, you're fine using that. Throw in a few clips and at least like 20 end papers. Now I know you guys only have to roll 6 perm rods, but try to include 8 just in case. And the size on the rod doesn't matter, whatever you prefer. I personally like the purple or orange. Have a couple gloves. Your string of cotton, long enough to go around 6 rods. You can include 2 to 3 towels. Remember, this is a chemical service, so you're gonna do towel, cape, towel. So you would either grab your chemical cape off the counter or include it in this bag also. And then you need your little squeeze tube labeled mock perm solution.
Hey everyone, today I'm going to be demonstrating the permanent waving service portion of your state board exam. So first, before we start any service, we are going to sanitize our hands. Just a little bit of hand sanitizer, get them all nice and ready and clean for you to start your service. So before we start a perm service, we are going to drape her with a cake towel method. We have to use this method for state board and for perms in general. So I already started out with one towel around her neck. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my cape. Most of these capes are gonna be too long because the mannequin's neck is so small. So if you have any excess cape, just wrap it around and I'll show you how to secure it with a butterfly clip. So we're gonna bring that over. And so it is too long, so I'm gonna take this portion and pull it over, around. Then I'm going to secure that with a butterfly clip. Then I'm going to put one more towel over the neck. So we have our initial towel down, now we have our cape, then this is our last towel. So I'm gonna put the long part in front of the neck, pull that around. That way I can secure it and fold it under. Fold the towel under. And we are ready to begin. So after we secure or drape our mannequin with the cake towel method, we are going to subsection her. I started out with a profile parting from the forehead to the top of the crown. Then we're going to take a radial from the top of the crown to the top of the ears. So this is going to separate the front sections from the back section. So we're not going to touch the front sections at all. This hair is going to stay secure and out of the way while we are performing our perm procedure in the back. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my state board bag. You're going to have a bag similar to this. It's going to look very, very close and have pretty much the same things that I have. So we're going to take everything out that we need for the service. So I have perm rods and perm papers. These perm papers are actually pre-folded. You can use the long ones if you want. We do have to roll a minimum of 6 rods, and there's 2 extra rods in here in case we do drop one at state board. I'm gonna take out my cotton. This is what I'm gonna wrap around the section. Put my bag back in. Take my gloves out. I'll need gloves. My mock perm solution. And then I have 2 rat tail combs. These are great for subdividing the hair and subsectioning the hair once we start to roll. So once I'm done with this bag, I'm going to close it back up and make sure that it remains closed. So the way that we subdivide the hair is we're gonna take a rod, and there's tiny little dots on this rod that show how wide we need to take that subsection. So we wanna go to the outer edge of those last dots that you see. So we're gonna take it to the back of that radial top and go ahead and subdivide the hair. So my hair's subdivided and ready to roll. I'm also gonna have a water bottle. I'm gonna need to use that to spray down the rods as we go. So a good rule to follow whenever you're subdividing the hair on how big to take the subsections is you go the width of the rod, meaning horizontal. So this is how big you want your subsections to be. So we're gonna go through and eyeball that and using our rod, taking our first subsection. And you can actually put this down while you're rolling. Also make sure whenever you are rolling that all your rods are rolled off base or on base. So if you're gonna roll on base, we are going to pull out and then roll forward. Off base, we're gonna pull towards us, okay? So let's go ahead and comb that first subsection up. I'm going to take a perm paper. I'm I'm going to wet that perm paper for control. Take my perm rod, pull it all the way up, and then we're going to start rolling that back. So I'm doing all of my rods on base. Pull that to the front, clasp. So I already rolled one, I'm going to roll 5 more for you. Remember, we're over directing up, so that way it's on base. I'm going to go ahead and open the clasps to the rest of my rods just so it's a little bit easier to maneuver. Also, another great tip is whenever you're working with any kind of tools, you want to always keep the comb that you're parting with in your dominant hand. So I'm going to keep it in my right hand. And then if you need to, you can always tilt the head down just a tad bit. So I'm about halfway done with rolling. I have 3 more. Still spraying the paper for control. Still rolling everything on base. If you notice, I never put this comb down. I always have it in my hand, okay? For the permanent wave service, you have 22 minutes for this section. Should be plenty of time. Okay, so I'm up to 5 rods. I have 1 more rod. Then I'll take you through the next step. This is my last rod. Let's pull that up. Make sure all the hair ends are in the paper. Start rolling. Okay, so I'm closing up my last rod. I have 6 rods rolled. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So after we roll our rods, we are going to grab our cotton, and we are going to put the cotton around the section of rods that we rolled. And this is going to ensure that whenever we put the perm solution on, it's going to catch any excess fluids or chemicals from leaking onto their draping or clothes. So I have my subsection wrapped, and now we are going to put our gloves on. before we apply any perm solution. Put our gloves on. Take our mock perm solution. You can use water in this. It doesn't have to be real perm solution. In this we have water. We're gonna open it. And then just remember that whenever you are saturating the rods, that you're going over each rod 3 times. So we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So after we have put our perm solution on, we are going to still keep our gloves on. And now we're going to do a test curl for our proctor. So I like to do the 3rd one down. It's just kind of right in the middle. So I'm going to release the clasp from the perm rod, pull out slightly. I'm going to place my thumbs onto the base of the rod and then just push on it slightly. And you can see where it starts to form that S pattern. So after that, you'll roll it back up. And we are done. That's it. I hope that this tutorial answers any questions that you may have. And we will see you again. Everybody have a good day.
Okay, blow dry and thermal curling. There's a label for that one. This one use that 2 to 3 gallon size just so that everything will fit nicely. You will need to include a blow dryer, the hot tool of your choice. You can use a wand, the flat iron. You do not necessarily have to have a Marcel. I personally say your basic curling iron is the easiest route to go. Include a brush, whether it would be a round brush, vent brush, paddle brush. Do have a testing paper to test the temperature of your hot tool. A neck strip. So with this, you will need your cutting tape. Either once again included in the bag, or you're just going to use it off the counter. But just make sure that you guys are spraying it down barbicide before you put it back on the counter. A towel, just in case you may need it. A couple clips. And I include both a standard comb and rat tail comb, whichever you prefer.
Good morning, guys. So today what we're gonna do is I'm gonna be teaching you guys the blow dry and thermal curling iron for the PSI. The time that you have allowed for this is 22 minutes. So what we're gonna do is we're definitely gonna take a little longer than 22 minutes to explain all this. But what we're gonna do is we're going to go over all the criteria points and the safety points that you have to hit on this application. So if you can't see what I've written down, go ahead and go to your PSI, and we're on page 17. A couple ways you can find this. If you have the actual handout, great, pull that out. Or you can go online and just Google Texas Cosmetology PSI, and a PDF will pop up, and then just go to page 17, okay? So let's go ahead and start with the criteria points here. First set of points you have is your procedure. So your procedure is going to be everything that they're wanting you to do in this application, okay? So first things first, you're going to sanitize your hands. Before and after, if you touch your face, if you are confused on the step and need a couple of seconds to regroup, just go ahead and sanitize, okay? And then the next thing is preparing your mannequin for the service. So what that looks like is maybe wetting down your section, brushing the hair, etc. Just getting it prepped for what you're about to do. And then the next thing is gonna be, also you're gonna be draping in that point too. So draping, so some people have had a few questions with draping. You can use the previous segment's drape, and that's fine, as long as before you finished your last segment, you take that drape off, you sanitize it with your disinfectant, wipe it down, fold it up, set it near your Windex and all your safety stuff that you have out for your whole exam. You can leave that there, and in the beginning of this segment, you can take that clean drape and drape it. Or another option is you can have a new drape in every single one of your bags. Whichever you prefer, it doesn't necessarily matter. So for me, I think I would probably use the same drape. I feel like that's a little bit more cost effective and just makes a little bit more sense to me. But again, whatever you prefer, there's no rule on that. So that's what you would do in preparing your mannequin mannequin for the service. Also with draping, we are just gonna use a neck strip. So it's gonna be cape, neck strip, and that's all you really need, okay? And then the next thing, we're going to blow dry the hair in one section. So it doesn't tell us in the PSI which section we have to use, so you get to choose. If you would prefer to do the back or the front, it doesn't matter. In my mind, this is a timed exam. Let's make things fast. Let's make things work a little easier. So I'm just gonna use the first quadrant. I'm not gonna mess with the back. There's less hair in that first quadrant, so it'll be a little bit faster to blow dry. Again, on that blow dry, you can use any brush. You can use a round brush, a flat brush. It doesn't matter as long as it's dry to the touch. And some people have asked before if they can use product. That's fine. You can add product to that. It's not a problem. It's not a requirement either. So whichever. And then we're going to show how to do the curl. So in this segment, they want to see two separate curls. They want to see an on base and an off base. The on base, what that will look like is we're going to actually over direct our section upwards, so it's literally sitting on its base. The off base, we're going to be a little bit lower than 90, so it just hangs off its base, okay? So those are going to be our criteria points for this segment. Again, this is timed. So if you look at that clock and you realize you only have 2 minutes to go ahead and stop and just keep going. You know, raise your hand, clean everything up. You'd rather miss a couple of these points than miss everything. So that is my advice to you. The next thing we're going to talk about is the safety criteria points. So disposing of waste material, ensure workstation remains sanitary, ensure draping is maintained throughout the service, replace contaminated items, kit remains sanitary, and avoid cross-contamination. So all this in a nutshell, if you drop something, pick it up, clean it, you can reuse it. If you drop something and you don't want to reuse it and you have another comb in your bag, well, just pick it up, put it in the trash that you have on your station, and then wash your hands and then pull out that new comb. Also, you got to make sure your kit remains closed. They don't want to see any open bags or anything like that. That is something you'll get counted off for. And then, let's see what else. Cross-contamination. Just make sure you're not like touching your face without cleaning your hands and then grabbing a tool. So if you touch your hands or touch something that's not clean, make sure you're just sanitizing, okay? So before and after every segment of the PSI, you definitely want to sanitize everything, your chair, everything, and then start your service, okay? So what we're gonna do first is I have a few of my things already set out. I'm gonna grab them. I went ahead and pulled out my blow dryer, my curling iron already. So you would do this once the time was called. But this is what my bag looks like. It's labeled blow dry and thermal curling iron service. And I have all my implements that we need. So today I'm just gonna be blow drying with a flat brush. You guys can use a round brush. Again, it doesn't matter, a vent brush. They just wanna see that you're getting that section dried. I've also already wet my section down. So again, I'm just using that first section, okay? And then, let's see. For the curling iron, I'm using just a tiny little fake Marcel. And I'm just gonna use my comb, because you still wanna practice when you're using that curling iron, you still want to practice, even though it's not part of the criteria points. One of the inspectors told us that you still want to practice the proper safety for your client. So what that would look like with the curling iron is testing the neck strip before you begin to make sure it doesn't brown it or anything like that, that appears burnt. That means it's too hot, which nowadays most curling irons are heat controlled, so you don't have to worry about that. So that's not a real life thing, but for a state board, it will be a thing. And then whenever you're using your curling iron, placing your comb so that you just protect that heat against the scalp. So that's what we'll be doing. So first things first, I've already sanitized my hands, which I just touched my face. I don't know if anyone caught that. I would sanitize my hands again, and then we'd go from there, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and blow dry or prep our mannequin for the service. So I'll get out my tray. I'm gonna kind of step off a little bit, so if you can't see me, I'm just grabbing that. And then in my little bag, I have 2 neck strips. You can put more. If you're a little bit clumsy like me, I drop tons of stuff. I probably, if I was taking this exam, have a few of these in there. So in here, we actually have our neck strips and some term papers to just wrap that or to test the paper with. So you can use that or a neck strip, anything you want. Okay, so now that I got that all draped, I'm just gonna go ahead and start blow drying my section. And then once you pull something out of your bag, make sure you're closing it and it remains closed. So there's no rule on exactly how to blow dry this. You can take it in sections. You can just blow dry back and forth to get it dry. It doesn't necessarily matter as long as everything is completely dry. So I'm gonna do that really quickly. I hope everyone's having a good quarantine. Maybe reading good books, something like that. I'm still very interested in all the funny memes and things like that. So if you're from Lubbock, we have a little thread going on our Facebook page. So don't forget to drop those in there. Okay, so my mannequin is dried. She has like a weird mullet, so this would technically be in the back section. So I'm still just using this front section here. Don't come after me in the comments. I did blow dry the one section. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and test. So if that happens and you drop your blow dryer, just pick it up and make sure you sanitize your hands like I just did. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my paper and we're just gonna test it. You literally just do this for a couple seconds and make sure it's not browning or anything. And then you're gonna take your section. So the section you take should be about the width of the curling iron you're using. So I'm using a relatively small curling iron, so it doesn't have to be that huge of a section. So I'm just gonna section it off. And again, on the PSI, it doesn't necessarily tell us exactly where this has to go. So I'm just feeding this in. And then before I get to the end, I want to make sure I'm just putting my comb right there, letting it sit for just a little bit. And you can use your comb to kind of help gently take the curling iron out of the curl. And if you need to reposition it, it's okay. And then that would be sitting right on its base, okay? The next one, you can take it a little lower. I'm gonna kind of separate this a little bit to make sure I'm not pulling my first curl out. And you'll just take your next section. You wanna make sure it's about the same width still. So I'm just holding it a little bit lower than a 90. And doing the same thing, making sure that I'm protecting the scalp. And then I can just loosen that. And you want it off its base. So that's really all you have to do in this segment. And then after we would be done, we'd raise our hand, we'd clean everything up first and take off her drape, and then you could reuse it for your next segment, and then you'd raise your hand and then you'd be good to go. So again, it's 22 minutes, and that is all for the blow dry and thermal curling. Thank you.
On to our final section, which is our chemical. Remember, this one makes you do chemical preparation first, and then you're gonna start doing your services, but it can all be included in one bag there. So we will be using that 2 to 3 gallon size bag. You're gonna have your 3 containers with your mock solution. Let me get those out. So label 1, mock hydroxide relaxer retouch, mock no base hydroxide relaxer, and the mock high lift product. So we have 3 containers. You will need to include 3 different color brushes. 4 to 5 foils for our highlight section. A protective cream. Remember, we are not going to dip our fingers in here, so make sure you have a spatula for that. You can include 2 if you want to, but 1 dip is pretty good. You will have 3 towels on this one. This is your chemical, so you're going to be doing towel cape towel. So make sure you use your chemical cape on this, and you will want that 3rd one on this one just to clean your hands off in between. Include a rat tail and standard comb in this one. It's also optional if you'd like to have that foiling comb. I know a lot of us like it. It makes partings, a whole lot cleaner, but whichever you prefer. Have a few gloves in there and about 4 clips. Another thing that's optional on this one, some people like to use that duck bill when they're applying product and moving on to the next section. So if you'd like to use that, have that included also. And basically that's all you need for your bags. Have fun. Okay guys, now we're on to the chemical service section, okay? Remember on this one first you're gonna start off with preparation only, and then they'll let you know when you go into each one, but it is okay to have everything in that one bag. So at this time, you're just able to prep for the chemical service. You have 10 minutes. So do not forget, before you even grab this bag to open it, always sanitize your hands first, okay? Do that. Then you can grab your hands and ready to go. Pull everything out and set it up. So step 1 tells us to sanitize, clean our hands. So make sure we do that. Then step 2 is gonna tell us to prepare our mannequin for the service. So the way we will do that is chemical draping, towel cape towel. And just make sure you have your chemical towel in here. You guys can use clips if you want to hold those towels together. If not, you can just knot them and they stay on pretty well. I know some of you guys prefer those T-pins, so whatever works for you, just as long as she stays draped. So towel, cape, and our second towel. Now it tells us to divide the hair into 4 uniform sections. So starting off, first take your profile section, so going all the way from the forehead back to the nape. Then from there, take your radial section and then clip off each 4 of those sections that you will create. So just make sure to make everything nice and clean and neat, okay? Keep those partings. Sorry, did I say sections earlier? I meant partings if I didn't say partings. My bad. Okay, after you have sectioned into those 4 sections, now you can apply the protective cream. So that is what this popsicle stick is in there for. Get enough so that you don't have to, so you can do it all with that one amount that's on the stick, sorry. If you do have to go back into that container, make sure you use another clean popsicle stick so that we're not double dipping and contaminating our container. And don't forget to put that lid on after you've gotten your portion out. You can use the stick. I prefer to use my fingers for this application. And just outline the whole perimeter of that hairline. Make sure you get the top of the ears also. Clean that off of me. Now, once you have done that, you will have your gloves. Now you can put those on. And at that point, you stop. That's what your 10 minutes is on. Do not move on. Remember, each one of these sections, they tell you when you're allowed to go on to the next one. The nice thing about this is if you're testing with a group of really fast people, everybody finishes within the 4 to 5 minutes and you move on to the next one. But if you have that one person who takes that full time, just stand back and just wait patiently till they tell you to go to the next step. So I kind of wrote our steps out here for us. So we did chemical surface prep, which once again was 10 minutes. Now it's time to do the foil highlight application. Remember, this is not timed. We only have to do 2. It can either be slice or weave, your choice. The easiest one on this one would be to do 2 slices. Now you don't have to leave a section of hair in between. You can do a foil on top of a foil. So they'll tell you when to begin this foil application. So you will grab your mock high lift product and the brush for that, and have your foils ready. So it's not specific on which quadrant you have to do the application in. For the foils, I tell you guys to choose one of the back 2 quadrants. Just because these quadrants are a lot longer, I would save those other 2 applications for these 2 that are a little bit smaller sections there. So pick either one of the back ones. First thing that I'm doing is I'm sectioning off so I don't have to deal with that weird little triangle area, so I can have something nice and smooth and straight. Whether you want to section with the tip of your color brush or with that rat tail comb or foiling comb, up to you. There's no right or wrong. Now, the one thing I will suggest to do is, obviously a slice is going to be the easiest to do. So take a very nice thin subsection, more like 1/8 of an inch. So the tip of this rat tail comb right here, that is roughly about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, it'll ensure that you don't make a section too big so you don't have that product that seeps out. And you guys may prefer to have a duckbill comb or something like that. Whatever you work with easiest and fastest, your choice. Okay, just make sure that your subsections are very, very clean and neat. So place your foil down. Remember, starting off, stay about 1/2 inch away when you first put that amount of product down, just so that you don't accidentally get too much and it globs out. Then from there, go from the edge of that foil and bring that product down. Working nice, clean, and neat. Don't sit here and swirl all this hair around and tangle it. Keep everything very, very neat and clean. Okay, make sure that foil is up all the way. Everything's saturated. And keep everything, once again, clean and neat. I like to do one foil right on top of the other. It also helps me so I'm not moving that foil around, and it can stay still and nice and neat. So once again, make a very, very thin subsection, like I said, about 1/8 of an inch. Place your foil down. Once again, don't grab a whole bunch of product so that you have it spewing everywhere. Start about 1/2 inch away. Then from there, move that product up so you have control. Then take it from the scalp all the way down to the ends. So the only 2 criteria on that, the 2 points on that section were to slice or weave the hair strands and then apply a high lift product. So at that point, you would just stop and wait to move on to your next section. Okay, now our next section is the No Base Virgin Relaxer. This one is timed for 10 minutes. So we're going to be taking, I know your PSI doesn't give you this note on there, but the subsections on that Virgin Relaxer are 1/2 inch. So if you need to write this down to remind yourself, it's 1/2 inch away from the scalp and 1 to 2 inches away from the porous ends. And then each subsection is going to be 1/2 inch thick. So most people's average pinky width of the nail is around 1/2 inch. Okay, if you have really, really big fingers, it may be a little bit smaller than that, but that can kind of give you a guesstimate of how far you're going to stay away from the scalp. Okay, there's also, if you have this standard comb, the numbers along there tell you in inches. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's your 1 inch mark. So halfway between there's your 1/2 inch measurement also, so you can kind of double check yourself. So whether you start top bottom, diagonal back, diagonal forward, horizontal sections, it's not specific. Just as long as each subsection is 1/2 inch, we're staying 1/2 inch away from the scalp and staying 1 to 2 inches away from our porous ends. I find it easier just to work from the bottom up, but whatever is easiest and fastest for you, do it. Okay, so on this one, you are gonna get your MOC No Base Hydroxide Relaxer and grab your separate color brush that you have set out for that. Once again, you can do your slices using your color brush or your comb, whatever you prefer, okay? Keep everything nice, clean, and neat. We don't want no zigzag partings. So stay about 1/2 inch from the scalp. And if you choose to stay 1 inch away from the ends, make sure it's consistently 1 inch away on every single subsection that you're taking. Make sure you're fully saturating each section, that you don't leave any dry spots. Working nice and clean and neat, and still letting those subsections be seen every time you're laying down a section. Don't push them into each other, okay? Now, this is where that third towel comes into play. Keep your hands clean so you don't get any product where you don't need it. Now, while you're doing this, if you happen to get product on your mannequin's face, just like you would on a normal client, stop, grab a towel, clean it up, and move on, okay? Don't leave her nice and messy. Once again, 1/2 inch from scalp. And whether you're choosing 1 to 1.5 inches away from your ends. Some of you may prefer to do one of these back quadrants, and that's fine. Just as long as you're taking the correct subsections and applying it, it really doesn't matter which quadrant you're in. And remember, you can do diagonal back, horizontal, diagonal forward. It's not specific on there. Whatever can make you work or helps you work the fastest and easiest. Product, I'm using conditioner. You can use cholesterol, conditioner, gel. There isn't a specific product to use. I just prefer using the cholesterol or conditioner because you can see the saturation better to me. Sometimes with the gel, I can't tell if I did saturate that section or not. And at least with something creamier, I can see it a lot easier, and the proctor won't question on if I left a dry spot or not. But once again, it's more just personal preference. So I'll reiterate, 1/2 inch from scalp and 1 to 2 inches away from the porous ends. And like I said before, if you choose to stay 2 inches away, make sure it's each subsection you're staying 2 inches away. Not one staying 1 inch, the other one staying 2, and alternating that around. Make sure everything stays consistent. So on this one, the criteria says to, number 1 says apply relaxer product for the virgin application. Remember, this is the virgin application. Once all this mid shaft or cold shaft would process, then you'd come back around and apply the product to the scalp and ends. You do not have to do that. We're just applying to this mid shaft, okay? Then step 2 tells us to demonstrate smoothing hair on one subsection. Okay, this is actually me smoothing that hair, okay? So just make sure you at least do that once. Another way to smooth the hair, you can use the tail of your comb or your color brush. And I'll do that one just at the very end. So if for some reason that proctor didn't catch me while I was doing this, running my fingers through it and smoothing it up, they'll at least see that last one. So I'll make sure I will get both of those points. One more thing to remind you guys, remember we're working on a round surface, okay? So sometimes we're focused here about that 1/2 inch and we over direct everything from the front back, and then you tend to start staying further and further away and it starts turning to like 1 inch to 1.5 inches. So just make sure that you're consistently staying with that application, okay? Almost done. And remember, when you're applying that product, don't run your brush up and down. Move in the same direction. Keeps everything cleaner and neater. So we're to our last section. If you accidentally get the scalp, clean it up so that you'll show that you're staying that 1/2 inch away. Or if you accidentally get it on the ends, make sure you wipe off that product. Okay, so that's a way of smoothing. And then the other way of smoothing that I was talking about would be literally me doing something like that. Okay, so that would complete that section. So once you do that, step back. Before you step back on each section, just make sure that you're checking to make sure that she's staying nice and clean. So now we are able to move on to the last portion of this section. This one is our relaxer retouch. Once again, this one is timed, okay? So we're pretending that she has 2 inches of new growth. So we're only applying 2 inches from the scalp and still taking our 1/2 inch subsections, okay? So wait for them to tell you to begin. So you'll get your mock hydroxide relaxer retouch and the brush that you have for that. So earlier I told you the tip of this is like 1/8 of an inch. Our pinky was more like 1/2 inch, okay? If I'm using this wider. Okay, last section on this is we'll be using our mock hydroxide relaxer retouch. So you'll get that container and the brush for that one. So don't forget with this one, we're only applying to 2 inches of new growth. So earlier I had explained that the tip of this is more like 1/8 of an inch. Your pinky nail is roughly about 1/2 inch, okay? If you have this wider coloring brush, the width of this is 2 inches. So to ensure that we're only applying to the 2 inches of new growth, you can use your brush for this, okay? Now, we did have to have we listed to have a few extra foils in here, okay? You wanted these for in case one fail, but also what helps with this is I don't want to get this on any other section and get marked off, so I'm just laying that across. Because on this one, I like to start from the top of this section and work my way down, okay? So I'm just fitting those foils and then putting that clip down so that I do not make a mess, okay? So like I said before, still doing 1/2 inch subsections, like I said, diagonal back, horizontal, diagonal forward. Just make sure everything is still nice, clean, and neat. And make sure we have everything combed out. So your criteria on this one is apply relaxer product for retouch application. So you don't have to come in and smooth or do anything like that. So If you would like to have product in there, have the color brush at the scalp, and you can set that down. Now that tells you how far that 2 inches of new growth is, okay? So that you're able to keep everything consistent and get all your points on this section also. Okay, so you apply to one side and then apply to the other. Once again, 1/2 inch subsections, only doing 2 inches of new growth. So from here on out, I apply to that underside and then I apply over the top. And the reason for me doing that is that if I were to do this way, all I'm doing is pushing that down. So you're not able to see those subsections for the proctor to grade you correctly. So I like to do the top part of that section application at the end. So once I do that, you can still see those sections very, very clearly. Now in the real world, on a actual person, you can go ahead. You don't have to be showing those subsections. You'll still want to take the subsections, but you're not getting graded and making sure that those are clear to see. Okay, so like I said, first time the underside, then after that over the top, and then I leave it or flip it. So once again, making sure, clean subsections, check yourself that you're consistently staying those, only applying to those 2 inches of new growth. Don't be scared to move the mannequin's head around. Okay, it's just like as if you're working on a person. You ask them to tilt or move, okay? And just make sure you have good saturation. Don't leave any dry spots. So apply to that underside first, then on the top, just so that we can still see those nice sections, subsections very, very clearly. And make sure those subsections are 1/2 inch, okay? If you need to check yourself, you can just kind of put your fingertip there to make sure you haven't turned them into about 1 inch to 1.5 wide subsections. Now here, sometimes we'll tend to get some product on the ear. That's fine, it happens. Just make sure before that proctor comes over to grade it that you clean her up, okay? Now at this point, I can grab all those dry ends, pull them down, and now that proctor can see those subsections very nice and easy, and I didn't push them together, okay? Now at this point, you're done. You just stop and step back, because the very end of the exam, that's when they tell you to clean up. So that's when you're gonna clean all this stuff. So at this point, just stop, wait for them to check you out, then for them to announce, okay, now we are at the end of the exam, disinfection. So grab everything that you have, put it in your trash bag, spray everything down with barbicide, the shelves that you had your bags on, spray that down, wipe everything down, make sure it's nice and clean and neat, no trash is on the floor product, put everything in your bag, and you're done for the day. And you'll get your passing grade. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. The one thing I will add though, that I forgot to add earlier, is when you're doing your bag packing, it would be smart to have an extra Ziploc bag labeled sanitize your clean implements, and have some extra gloves in there for you. If you didn't already put extra gloves in each bag, because let's say you have to run to the restroom, or somehow you pick something up off the floor and you had that glove on. Well, you're gonna have to put on a nice clean new pair. So you can have that labeled, kept on the side. So if you do need to get into it, just remember, anytime you're getting into a new bag, make sure you sanitize your hands first. You can grab what you need, seal it up, put it back on the shelf, okay?